Hey UConn Nation, it's KK Arnold here. If you're looking for the latest UConn women's basketball content, go subscribe to listen up to Phil and Ryan. Go Huskies!
Down to 4 weeks, Ryan. Wave and say hi to Phil and Ryan. New York and UConn, the wheels will be rolling. And here's just another sign that is about to happen, Ryan. That legendary matchup between Brenda Freese and Gino Auriemma. The preseason women's AP Top 25 poll is officially out. Coming on with Ryan Renner on this Tuesday, the 17th. Ryan, I know you have a lot to take away from this. We have great news overall. Let's go ahead and correct ourselves. Overall, number 2, UConn. UConn lands at number 2 overall on that preseason women's AP Top 25. And I know ESPN Bracketology had them as a 1 seed, Ryan, a couple weeks ago when we came on Listen Up. But now that you look at this list, to me, even though we're focusing on UConn all day, every day, I don't know about Ohio State bumped down to number 7. So I will leave it to you. See what your takes are while I look over the list, and then we'll get down on the comments today.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that South Carolina is still ranked at number 6. I think that might be a little high. I think it's going to be interesting. Of course, it's the preseason poll. Everybody's just kind of guessing to where these teams are going to be. It's hard to know anything before the first week of games are played and so on as the season continues to roll. But I personally like this top 5. Obviously, everybody already knew LSU was going to be number 1. I like UConn at number 2. I think that's, a very rightful spot, deserving spot to put them at number 2, followed by number 3, Iowa, number 4, UCLA, and number 5 is Utah. So I think it's a pretty solid top 5 for the preseason AP poll. Of course, like I said, I think me personally, South Carolina at number 6 is a little high for them considering all the players that they did lose. Ohio State 7, Virginia Tech 8, Indiana 9, and Notre Dame at number 10, rounding out the top 10. So I think it's an interesting poll. Something that, of course, this is a big note as well that I saw. The Huskies are now tied with Tennessee for most consecutive weeks in the AP poll. It's 565 weeks in a row. So that's pretty impressive. 2 pretty historical programs. Tennessee, the Volunteers, are ranked at number 11. So pretty impressive from both of those teams. One other Big East team in the AP poll, that's Creighton, the number 22, kind of spoke about how they're kind of on the uprise of things, and UConn does play them twice, of course, in the Big East. So kind of expecting when we went over the Big East schedule, kind of expecting those matchups to be pretty close. Villanova not on the AP top 25, but they did receive 1 vote. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting top 25 AP poll. Like I said, though, never really know about anything until the first week of games are played.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned South Carolina number 6. I know it seems like a little bit. It seems like we jumped ahead 10 years, doesn't it? It seems like it's like a new era. All of a sudden, we jumped ahead like 10 years. We only jumped ahead about 2 or 3 weeks from that last episode of ESPN Bracketology. Ryan, when you look at this list, I know all UConn fans out there, when they hear this today, they want to know. It's natural. It's natural, right? I mean, the obvious goal, but let's go ahead and talk about. So many times I brought up the word March last season, and I know a lot of people got tired of hearing about it. And we obviously know why now, because the March run fell short. All right. When you consider that, let's jump off of the national title debate for just a second. And let's go ahead and switch, because you said it right. It's a season of ups and downs. And to be honest with you, I would be surprised if any diehard UConn fan would sit there and be like, nah, we don't want to, we're not worried about that. We're not going to consider, we're not even going to talk about what Phil is talking about right now. What I have to question for you is, Ryan, do you ever in this whole entire season see just a flash? Because we are lucky enough, we are blessed enough to be covering this AP poll, hopefully for you guys, every single week that it comes out. Do you ever see, Ryan, UConn up in that one spot?
Well, it's interesting because I just saw too that LSU received 35 of the first place votes. UConn received just one. So, I mean, I think there's always a possibility. Of course, I think if LSU keeps on winning, obviously they're going to stay at number one. I mean, it's going to be tough for UConn to stay undefeated. I think we already went over it, facing, I believe, seven previous top 25 teams from the last season to kind of start off their season schedule for the non-conference opponents. So it's not going to be easy for UConn by any means, but if they can stay undefeated and kind of roll on through the Big East schedule, maybe only losing one game, I can see them possibly moving into that number one spot at some point, but definitely not going to be easy with LSU. I think everybody is just so high on them. And you know, the people that do come out with the AP poll rankings. So unless LSU loses a couple games, it's going to be tough for them, I think, to drop out of that number one spot for really the whole season, kind of like we saw with South Carolina the past 2 or 3 seasons for previous years, that they were pretty much number one for every single week for about 2 years there. So I think that might be the same case with LSU this year.
Yeah, and of course, we know LSU won the transfer portal. They won, let's just say they won the whole offseason. All right, we'll throw all the awards, but it's not about that, right? It's not about throwing awards at teams during the offseason, even though some teams like it that way, bright and shiny. No disrespect towards LSU, because they did their thing. You know, they prepared, they're ready. We get it. But again, just 2 things very quickly. I think that it's very respectful out of a lot of analysts and just actually people over, especially the AP poll, to the Associated Press, not to forget. I don't know if that's the right word, Ryan, but not to forget about UConn. I mean, that to me, that is very respectful. I mean, there's a ton of question marks whether UConn can stay healthy, right? Think about that, whether they can stay healthy this season. With Paige Beckers returning, not knowing how she's going to look. All right, we haven't seen her for, it seems like, a decade, right?
Yeah.
But although I did watch an interview, she's learned a lot by just watching, just like you and I watching basketball, and everyone that watches this podcast. I heard she has learned a lot just by watching. So that gets you and I excited, right? We can't wait to see what she has learned, all right? And then not only that, but again, just going back to what I was saying, I think that's just very I mean, how could you forget about UConn? You can't. I'm not saying that, but the fact of the matter is, Ryan, man, that to land them at number 2, I to be honest with you, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting maybe 4 or 5. I wasn't expecting number 2, only because there's so many question marks around this team.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think, you know, for the AP poll, I think it's just the talent level they kind of see in UConn is what I would have to guess on that one. And I think just UConn's ability over so many decades now to just continually get it done. So I think, you know, a lot of people are kind of just expecting UConn to just win is what they do best. And Gino kind of has that mentality for all the players that brings it every single year, that just continue to win, roll through their conference, roll through the non-conference opponents that they face. Definitely hasn't been as easy as it has been in past years for, you know, in most recent years. But I think for UConn this year, just the talent level alone, what they've kind of shown through the off season. Yeah, I think number 2 is very deserving. It's kind of where I expected them to be. I think, you know, LSU and UConn are the top 2 teams, you know, had kind of have been throughout the whole off season. So definitely should be interesting moving through the weeks of this regular season to see how the AP poll changes each and every week.
All right, now let me tell you, Ryan. One writer broke down, and this gets us in the comments before we head out. One writer had wrote earlier this week, but no one in the country adds a player like the Huskies do in Beckers. The question is, as it's been for 2 years, can the 2021 National Player of the Year stay healthy? Not only that, can the whole team stay healthy? We know that is a big question since we've been on this podcast. That takes me into the first comment. Arthur goes, You guys must get over your little boy crush on Paige. It's getting kind of creepy. There are 14 girls on the team. Paige is not the entire team. Well, again, Ryan, you know I don't back down from any comment on the podcast, but getting into basketball talk, you tell me. I'm not putting words in this person's mouth. I know I don't want to put the pressure on you, Ryan, but this is your part of the show. You tell me what I take away from this. You tell me you want to remove Paige Beckers from that whole team. I'm not saying that this person does, but you want to remove just that one player from the team. Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, well, that's basically what happened last year is basically removing Paige Beckers from the lineup. And I think
right, and I'll let you finish. You saw, and you can't ever take that away from Phil. I'm not bragging, but we all saw. Now, there were other injuries, right? There were other injuries, and I agree with him. It's a team effort, but we all saw what happened in March. Ryan, you did too.
Yeah, and I think that was the key thing was, when it came time down to crunch time in March is when really, the loss of Paige Beckers finally, kind of just came to fruition. And, I think they did a good job during the regular season to kind of, handle the loss of Paige Beckers and kind of got through the regular season. But I think in March is when it really showed not really having that player to kind of take the pressure off and make the big time shots. But I think, Paige Beckers, since she came in her rookie year, and it was such an amazing year, and everybody kind of hopped on the Paige Beckers bandwagon and was really rooting for her to do well and put up these historic numbers. But obviously, there are a lot of other women on this team and the team around her that makes a lot of magical things happen too. So it's definitely good. We're definitely really excited. We get to see hopefully everybody healthy and finally play together this season, and definitely expecting some pretty big things to happen.
Ryan and I will always praise Ryan and I will always praise Paige Beckers and talk about this big name in basketball for years to come, even when she's outside of UConn looking in. So we have to remember that, Ryan. And all the other writers have the ability and they are able to write about her, and we will talk about her for time and time over and over again to come. That's just the way it is. And I tell you, with Halloween coming up, Ryan, you know what's a little bit kind of creepy? Just think if the UConn Huskies win at all next year with Paige Beckers. I tell you, that is kind of creepy, huh? Because I've been trying to tell you, Ryan, what they've been missing. Let's go ahead to Gary Roundtree. Being real, a nice night for the girls. And don't forget the 2024 recruitment players was there as well.
Yeah, I know Ali Zabel was definitely one of those big names and a couple others. So I believe the number one player in the country still has yet to decide, still deciding on a couple of schools. So it's always, I love how UConn is always getting ready for the future and always recruiting a year, 2 years, sometimes even 3 or 4 years. Like we've seen a couple players have already signed for 2025, I believe, that we went over in the past. So yeah, I love how UConn is always, getting ready for the future and always trying to recruit, the next generation of talent that are still, freshmen or sophomores in high school. So definitely really excited, and hopefully we get some of those big announcements from some of the players in the top 5, top 10 that UConn is trying to recruit.
I know it's getting exciting. Ryan can't wait. I can't wait. Ryan, I'm seeing comments. The excitement is building. I even see one that says that they thought that you had a new partner on this podcast because I look like a freshman with no beard. So we have that to analyze, Ryan. So they almost didn't recognize Phil. I don't know whether that's good or bad, Ryan. Jason D'Amico goes, great show, fellas. It's getting close. So Ryan, I just read you I'd read you 10 comments at a time, and for you to break down, I guess just the only one word, Ryan, that you can describe before we leave today. What describes it, Ryan? It's like 3, 4, 5 weeks away. Excitement, buddy.
Yeah, I think really excitement is the first word that comes to mind. Just the excitement of every new season is always exciting. And of course, the starting lineup, of course, we love to predict that. And just, like I said, the excitement of hopefully seeing everybody back on the court together and being able to stay healthy, which we haven't really seen everybody play together in, more than a handful of games in the past couple seasons. So, yeah, definitely really, really excited for the season to kick off.
Every sunset is an opportunity to reset. Every sunrise begins with new eyes on UConn. We know the pressure is on, and that tells it, Ryan. Landing at number 2 in today's preseason AP poll. It's Phil and Rye on Listen Up.